The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I am so delighted to introduce and welcome my guest today, Marjie Ledgerwood, special education teacher at Lompoc High School and recent recipient of the inaugural Bill Cerrone Heart of Education Award. Marjie, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's fabulous to be here. Thank you for having me.
I cannot wait to share with everyone the story about this incredible Bill Cerrone Heart of Education Award, but we also get to talk about your teaching background and experience and all of that. It's such a great story. I think a good place to start, however, is at the beginning. Tell us where you were born and raised and the schools you attended.
I'm homegrown. I was born and raised in Lompoc, California. I'm the youngest of 8, so there's 7 girls and 1 boy in the family. Went to Lompoc schools, Miguelito to start, and Hapgood, and then to LVMS, and then it turned into the middle school. So we were the first middle school at Lompoc, and then went to Lompoc High School. And all of us graduated from Lompoc High School. So
all 8 of you?
All 8 of us.
And I understand you were a big sports family, is that right?
Yes, multiple different sports. It started, my sister was in flags, I call that, and cheerleading and track, and some with softball. My brother was basically my hitting partner in tennis, and he was very athletic, and I kind of followed right in his footsteps with that. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And tell us where you then went to college and how you ended there and what was your major?
Well, my plan was to go to UCSB.
Okay.
That didn't quite happen. Summer after my senior year, I was playing travel ball with softball team out of Goleta, and I was at a tournament and got seen by a coach from Indiana University, and from there proceeded by August to be in Bloomington, Indiana at IU. So
a surprise to you and probably your family.
Absolutely, going 2,000 miles away from home, kind of never been really out of the state, well, to Hawaii, but never really for a long period of time. So yeah, that was a journey for sure, but a wonderful experience to get away for a little bit and then eventually come back. So.
Right, and you played softball for your college, is that right?
I did. I played softball at Indiana, got to meet some great coaches through the Big Ten play, Michigan, went to Iowa, or played at Iowa, or played these teams. So. Being part of the Big Ten atmosphere was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. Can I ask what position you mainly played?
Yeah, I was a catcher, third base, but when you're a freshman, you play anywhere.
Everything.
You play anywhere. You
Wow.
just want to get on the field. So it was first base, it was shortstop for a little bit, and wasn't quite fast enough for that. So third base, catcher, and then outfield a little bit. So
I'll have to look for footage. I bet you're fantastic. I'll have to watch that. And I know that, and I'm going to emphasize sports here for just a minute because it'll come into play later when we talk about the Heart of Education Award. But I read somewhere that you lettered in 12 times when you were in high school. So softball was not your only sport. We've already talked about the fact that your family is a very athletic-oriented family. But what were some of the other sports you, I bet, could have played in college too?
Right. Softball was kind of the last sport I picked up. I played baseball growing up, so I played with the boys on boys teams. And but in high school, I played tennis 4 years. I played a lot of tournaments through Santa Barbara Tennis Patrons growing up, and then would go into different backyards and be able to play at Ojai and Cathedral Oaks. And so there were some great experiences playing tennis there. And then I played basketball. I just started that in high school, so I picked that up right away and enjoyed those 4 years of basketball. And then, again, I hadn't played softball, so I went right into track. I didn't run very fast for a freshman, but I could throw things. So I threw the discus and the shot put. And then the following year, a couple of friends of mine got me convinced that I should go play softball.
I love it. I love it. Such a competitor, and I'm sure that comes into play in just some daily lessons and how you lead your life. Not necessarily the competition, but the mental discipline that it takes to really go the distance. In terms of athleticism and sports and a team.
Well, that comes into play even through growing up in a family of 8.
True.
I mean, we learned how to collaborate real well. We learned how to compete with one another real well, and then you work things out. So you're all at the dinner table together, and But sports is very similar. Yeah. I usually call my family my first team, and all of the other athletic teams were definitely following along in the same footsteps.
Got it.
Competing, but respecting one another, and a lot of life lessons through that. The discipline it takes to be an athlete and yet to be a student that excels as well. So those were all great values that I learned through athletics.
Mm-hmm. So what did you major in college? And then how did you draw a picture or draw a line from that major to teaching?
Well, a big influence at Lompoc High School, he's been there for years now, is Tom Blanco. Mm-hmm. And he's an athletic trainer there. And I believe his second year was probably my freshman year at the high school level. So I got to see what Tom did for athletes and the service that he provided as far as taking care of athletic injuries. And I looked at that and I was like, that's something I would love to do. I like to care for people. I love athletics. And so I went to IU, not really knowing the exact major, but when I saw that sports science athletic training was a major, that's where I headed. Mm-hmm. And then from there, after I graduated, I came back home, immediately picked up into the high school setting again, coming back to my roots, started coaching and long-term subbing, and eventually found my way into teaching.
Eventually found a way, which is a great way to go. And you made your way to Lompoc High School.
Yes.
And first, I believe you were teaching at Cabrillo.
I did.
And then for a few years, and then at Lompoc High School. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what were some of the courses that you taught along the way to where you are now?
I'm a teacher of students with moderate to severe disabilities, and so my experience in special education is always with that level of a student. So 9th to 12th grade at Cabrillo High School, and then I coached there as well. But as soon as there was an opening at my alma mater, there was, our whole family went there, so it was a natural setting, natural fit to go back home. Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to be teaching at your alma mater today?
I absolutely love it. I mean, it's the pride you have in the school growing up to be able to give back to students and to the community in that way. We have a lot of alums that teach at Lompoc High School, and Cabrillo, I'm sure, is the same way. There's a lot of alums that teach at Cabrillo as well. So it's always nice to go back to your roots and give back.
Definitely. Well, both schools have been lucky to have you, and Lompoc High School, I'm sure, loves to have you back as a former student and now incredible teacher, named as the Bill Cerrone Heart of Education Award recipient. So let's move to that award. How did you find out that you were the recipient of this award?
It was a sneak attack. I had my principal must have arranged for a team picture with our unified team on a Monday that I actually wasn't scheduled to be in at work. I was out of town for that day, and he said that I needed to be back by 11:30. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it. No, please, you need to be here. So I got there, and then to my surprise was a group of amazing people there. I mean, I was overwhelmed. It was just an amazing feeling. Bill Cerrone, his wife, board members, our superintendent, administrative staff for both districts and the school, and my team and my assistant coach. Well, my head coach, actually, I act as the assistant, but Tom Garrett was there too. And all such a big part of what Unified is about. So it was a pleasant surprise and overwhelming, to say the least.
Sneak attack.
Yes.
I love it. And for our viewers and for anyone who has looked into the Heart of Education Award, a person cannot apply for that award. Other awards where you are nominated for, this one, it finds you. So that sneak attack, as you said, might be a really good phrase and terminology for it, because it really finds you, and the selection committee out there who shall remain unnamed, found you, and I think they found such a great recipient for that award. And so let's talk a little bit about the work that you do that really was recognized and is being recognized through this award. It has a lot to do with Project Unify. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's explain what that is. Not everyone knows.
Well, it's really kind of a two-phase program. There's the club aspect of it. So we have a club that meets every Wednesday during the week of students that have both disabilities and that don't. And the idea is to interact and get to learn about one another, to share leadership responsibilities within the club, to organize, to develop just a family community amongst one another. The other aspect of it is the play part of it, the unified sports project with basketball. And through athletics, and this is what really intrigued me, was the athletic piece of it, as well as the leadership piece, but definitely the athletic piece, because I grew up and those were the connections, and how I found connections on campus was through sport. Anytime I didn't know exactly how to fit in, it was through competition, it was through athletics, and that was a piece that was missing for a lot of our students with disabilities, and how to get plugged in and how to get involved and have pride in your school and be a piece of that, to wear a uniform that has the school name on it. I mean, that's something that some of our students didn't have the option for or the access to. And so providing that through something like Project Unify and Unified Sports, seeing the faces on the athletes and seeing the parents, it's really just an amazing process, an amazing thing that has taken place, and I couldn't be more proud of what they're doing and what our Unified partners are doing as well through that project.
That's wonderful. So students from all abilities, with all abilities, and specifically those who are typically in special education classes, can be part of this team, Club Unify basketball, and can play with students from your school, but also other schools too, my understanding. Yes. And before we go into kind of the competition part, let's talk a little bit more about the importance of having that uniform and actually having a crowd to watch the game, cheerleaders, scoreboard. Tell us more about what it looks like if you were there to watch this team play.
If you're playing a competitive model, you really can't tell the difference between a student that has disabilities and does not, depending on the level of competition you play. There's multiple levels. There's a recreational model, a developmental model, and then a competitive. When you start to play the competitive, you really can't tell the difference between, again, the athletes and the partners. The athletes are the students with disabilities, and the partners, according to Special Olympics and how we label students or identify the students, is through partners or athletes. And so they go through, and it's a great competition. There's referees there. They get to wear the uniform. It's really a big piece that they wear the name of the school. They wear the colors. They get involved and entrenched in the fabric of the school culture. And at Lompoc High School, that's a huge piece of the sports culture at the high school level. The fans were amazing. There were cheerleaders there. The one whole side of the stands were filled with both Cabrillo and Lompoc fans and cheering one another on. So it was, as I got to speak to some of the parents in the audience, a lot of the feedback was, a lot of people think it's for our students with disabilities, and in reality, it's for all of them. And I go, and it's for us too. I mean, it really is just a really great scene of how people get along and humanity. I mean, it warms the heart.
It does warm the heart. Thus, the Heart of Education Award, and you can see again why it was so perfect to have you be that inaugural recipient, truly. And it really is about, as you say, Club Unify or Project Unify. It is about unification. It's really about inclusion. And it's learning for students with the disabilities as well as the partners, the ones who are in mostly general education courses. And for those students, what do you think that they took away? What are some of the things that they took away from being partners?
Just the realization that we're all people. We're not that much different from one another. We have a lot of the same passions, a lot of the same desires, some goals that we would like to go pursue, some of the needs as far as interactions and friendships, and they were able to model and be great examples for our whole student body of how to get along with all students.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, it was a beautiful thing to watch that whole dynamic between them.
That's great. And Project Unify started at Lompoc High School and then it's expanded to Cabrillo High School, my understanding, to have some crosstown rivalry. But did it also expand beyond the city of Lompoc?
It's in the stages. We're going tomorrow. We're going to San Luis High School, where we'll be a part of a unified basketball game, and they're just underway this year. So the model is starting to go across California. It's CIF endorsed. California Department of Education has really put a stamp on it as well. There are some leagues out there. Freedom High School up in, it's about an hour north of Pleasanton. They have a whole league of multiple sports.
Wow, that's great.
And so I'm hoping, the 3 to 5 year plan is to have leagues across California that all of our students can compete and be a part of CIF and have those experiences of traveling together. Road games, those were always kind of the fun thing.
That's right.
So there's a lot of experience with going on the road as well,
Yes.
not just versus the home game. So
Right.
yeah.
So your longer term goal, 3 to 5 years. So medium to longer term.
So 2 more years.
Yes.
2 more years.
And you'll get it expanded, but you're thinking about other sports and, not just in Lompoc, but across the nation, really.
Right. I really
Yeah.
want to focus on one sport now, just to try to get a league going. I think there's Special Olympics has really supported the whole process and the whole program. It is a Special Olympic brand, and so they're out there willing to help, and they're available to bring community access into the schools, community resources, and as we move to the Channel League, which is the Santa Barbara area,
Yes, that's right.
I'm hoping that we can develop a league in our new league.
Right.
So with
That's
San Ynez,
fantastic.
Cabrillo, and all 3 Santa Barbara schools.
Oh, Margie, I love how you painted the picture of Project Unify, and it really does say a lot about the uniform and the kind of community that is built through the sports and through the full inclusion. And my understanding is that the inclusion that you're looking for, yes, it's on the court, and yes, it's with athletics, but it's also within the classroom and within the schools. Can you say a little bit more about what you're thinking around inclusion at a school level in classes?
The last year has been really focused on least restrictive environment in schools and really pushing to gain greater access for our students with disabilities in gen ed curriculum and across the board and equity pieces that are involved with that. And so we've moved very collaboratively with our whole school site and our principal and district, and had a lot of buy-in, and we're doing co-teaching models now at the high school, and we're pushing further into in-class support models and trying to expand from this year where we're doing mostly freshman level, the core content, to where next year we're working for freshman and sophomore levels and a little bit of support at the senior level as well. But really doing some good things that way with our staff. I'm just amazed at the buy-in and just really proud of that at Lompoc High School. So.
I bet you are, and you can really see it filtering into the upper grades there. For those viewers who don't know what co-teaching looks like, can you say just a little bit about what co-teaching is and what it means for inclusion?
Right. It's we're both teacher with an education specialist and a gen ed content teacher. They're both planning their curriculum together, they're teaching together, and they're doing assessments together within the same classroom. And so there's really a lot of support in there. The ed specialist is really the expert in accommodations and modifications and how to adapt curriculum to meet the various needs of all students, not just your students with disabilities, but good teaching practice goes across all, and so they can help meet the needs of all students. And the gen ed teacher is really a great resource for the content. And as they learn one another, it can be difficult. It's really a kind of what's been referred to as a marriage within the classroom. But as they get used to one another and gain a little confidence with one another and what their strengths are, it's really a nice dynamic. And students get to learn from two teachers.
I really love that, and it's something that we spent a lot of time today on the athletic part, but really it's around the whole school culture piece, and it's really, as you mentioned earlier, it's about humanity, it's about culture, community, family, it's about life, really.
Yeah.
And something that I really appreciate about you is that you're a teacher, you're a coach, an educator, and also a leader, and you're constantly pushing yourself to learn, to grow, and expand. And one of the things that I understand that you did to help yourself in that area is to put yourself through an administrative course, a year of school where you learned what it is to be an administrator, and now you have an administrative credential. Do I have that right?
You do. I took several years off of coaching softball, but it was for more than just seeking further educational purposes. But yeah, that was one of the experiences that I did have over my break from softball. And, I thought I was going to spend some downtime, and of course that didn't happen. And Paul, my principal, Boomersbach, he was just like, yeah, downtime, right? So I got involved in the PASS program, and that really helped me understand a lot of things at the school site with relation to the LCAP and student site plans and where the push was and how administrators started pushing for different collaborative pieces, different professional developments, and really working towards what more student needs were. But then it also opened my eyes to what staff needs were too. So I started to get a little bigger picture. It spurred a little fire in me a little bit. One of the pieces that I liked was particularly the school leaders our children deserve. And it had a lot to do with the equity and access piece and the culture of the school and how we can push towards those ends. And being within the special education field and seeing some of the things within my classroom and with my students, it just was a natural fit with that too. And so I've used little bits and pieces of that just to push forward and to expand some of the opportunities for students. And again, working collaboratively, that's such a huge piece.
Yes.
In anything that you're going to accomplish.
That's right, and all focused on equity and opportunities for all students, and really appreciate that you shared with us some of the learning from that preliminary administrative services credential program. So appreciate that, and then you went right back into coaching after that. After that, right?
It wasn't right back into it, but it was more out of one of our coaches got sick or had a family illness and there was a need.
There was a need and you were there to fill it.
So they asked.
Margie, I know that you've impacted many students in your career. You impact them every day. And some students and their stories just really stick out. You'll remember them forever. Is there a particular student story that you can share in terms of your impact on them or theirs on you?
Yeah, I can think of one. There's many students I can think of, but I can pretty much pick one student I can think of right now that's within my classroom. And he has, at school, sometimes it's difficult for him. It's difficult to have some relationships, and at other times he's the social butterfly of the classroom, but he bounces between kind of on task and behavioral. And then when he's with Unified, we can use that, the basketball, and we use that as a positive reinforcement for him. And he sees the engagement of the gen ed peers, and that's what he really seeks. And it's a mutual benefit. The peers get some benefit from this one student, and this student just lights up when smiles. He's very hilarious. He's very humorous, and he fits right in with the whole dynamic of just teenagers bantering back and forth. And I look at the program and see how this has impacted him. And in return, I look at that and just go, this is really just something beautiful for all of our students, and I just want to continue to work hard towards making it more accessible to all students. So.
That's a great example. I love that you can see this student in your classroom and in behavior in one way and success in one way, and then see him on the court and see a whole different perspective. It really is something very unique that you get an opportunity to see his successes in multiple different venues, right, or opportunities for success.
He was hilarious on the court just past Wednesday, too.
Yes.
I mean, just the competition and, dribbling the ball and shimmy and shaking. And it was just fun. It's fun. It's fun to watch them be successful in the classroom. Yes, overcome some hurdles and some struggles, and then be successful in other venues. So,
Margie, I have to tell you, your face lights up when you talk about your students and these specific examples. I think that your impact on them probably does the same for them, and I can see that they do that for you too. And one of the things that you do, all educators do, but definitely as I'm listening to you talk, is that you give a lot of yourself. You think about a lot of your students and opportunities for them, and we all need to have some balance at some point in our day, week, or month. So curious for you, how do you relax and unwind and achieve that balance again?
Again, I'm athletic, but then slowing down a little bit. So I've, hung up the softball cleats and the throwing, because I don't think the shoulder can handle that much more. But I have picked up a more walking sport. So disc golf, I enjoy that.
Right.
I go to Santa Cruz and play up in De La Viega. It's a phenomenal golf course, and I have some good friends that I've connected with through that. But it's important to be able to have a release too, to be able to spend. I have a dog. I get to go walk and throw a frisbee for as well, and it's learning to catch it. And
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Be outside and get some fresh air, and then have some exercise as well.
And then you have family. So I have a lot of family still in town, about half of us, and then half of us are out of town. So
that's great. Well, Margie, I can't believe it, but we're already running out of time. And it just goes so quickly. But I do want to ask you as our inaugural Heart of Education Award winner, have such a unique perspective from what you teach and what you coach. What message, Margie, might you have for our community who's watching today, listening to you and hearing you speak around teaching and inclusion and equity? What is a message that you as a teacher would like to share with our community?
I think it's more that all students can be a part of all different parts of the school campus. That there's equity and access when we go into the gen ed, and the lessons that we learn within the gen ed community for students that might not typically be able to get there, or maybe we thought couldn't get there, with appropriate accommodations and modifications and a little bit of support. They get in those classrooms, and the learning that they have or get and experience, whether it be social or academic content driven, it's very challenging for them, but it's a great challenge. It's that rigor that they need to be able to expand. And so just continue to push for students to be able to go into those settings and experience the full high school opportunities.
Wonderful. Margie, thank you so much for spending this time with us today, and your insights and your advocacy, all for student equity and opportunity. It's been a really wonderful for me and a privilege and honor to sit down across from you as our Heart of Education Award recipient. Thank you, Margie.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of Education Matters.